Hello everyone, I am Hazel and I will be discussing about the thematic relevance of the novel Life of Pi written by Jan Martel. So to start, it is important to know the flow of the events and fully grasp the story so that we can determine the underlying message, and through that we can gradually know the themes present in the story for us to then compare it to our world today and its relevance to the 2022 world. Similar to every prose and poem that we have read and discussed, this book has its enormous themes if we dig deeper into the story's character, plot, and etc. But there are only few themes that appear to their greatest extent today. And these major themes include of course, the trust in God but do the work, the power of nature and other creations, the version of the story, and finding oneself. The first theme is trust God but do the work. It is very evident that the story was driven by the connection with God. It was in the beginning that the narrator specifically said that I have a story that will make you believe in God. And through that, we can presume that the whole story has something to do with God and life of a person. It was also mentioned Pi as the protagonist, as a young boy, has three religions, which is Hinduism, which he was baptized into, and Christianity and Islam, which he adopted as he grew older, and he utilized to spread the teaching and present belief in faith through practices. It was also not limited to the religion of the protagonist or the people in the characters, but also as the main character, Pi also admire other beliefs in even in the atheist, because he said that he was very amazed by their ability to believe something that there is no proof of absence, and that is what the atheist believes. And also, although it was not mentioned in the beginning, the later part of the story says a lot about how Pi believed in both God and himself. It does not limit him to believe in God and then do not believe in himself, because it was in the story na parang may kita na pwede pala yun na that people can believe in God but still do the work. Kasi as we all know, the most popular belief of as humans, that of the bahala na ang Diyos, symbolizes how we perceive God as something extraordinary, that we hope He does everything for us, and we will not do work to uplift our lives, because today these line talks more on the negative side of the Filipinos, or even us, even all the humans. We tend to believe that God has plans for us, and therefore neglect our duty to take care of ourselves and do what is needed to achieve that goal. However, I can't deny that the fact that some people really are determined to make efforts to lift their quality of life. This thing is similar to that of the things that the main character in the novel did. The protagonist, Pai Patel, did everything to stay alive. He strategically plans on how he will be able to eat, how he will be protected from that of the carnivorous tiger during the sail for days. And it is to the point that he plans on catching fish for the tiger and him to not get hungry, and a lot of plans just to stay alert and be alive. However, he loses his hope to live. One thing that he keeps him alive is his hope to God. He gives his life to God, na parang in the latter part of the story, he said that I give myself to you. And in that moment, parang boom, biglang nagkaroon ng miracle, and they landed on an island where they found food, water, and other things they needed, or the natural resources that their body needed, just to provide for their needs and to not get hungry. That part of the story actually amazed me as well, kasi in the lowest part of our lives, it is hard to even believe in God's existence. Parang mapapatanong ka na lang, totoo ba siya? But then Pai did the contrary. His faith was even deepened in his low point in life. Parang just like everyone else, the when we are in our deepest point, parang mapapatanong ka, parang may care ba sa akin ng Diyos? Totoo ba siya? And that is what that is different to what Pai believes in, na even though he experienced a lot of adversities in life, that he lost his family, he was alone in that place, alone with Tiger, the carnivorous, and a lot of unfortunate things na mapapawala talaga sa hope sa kanya. But even though all the hopes disappeared, his faith remained. And in that part of the story, it is observed that God really works in His own mysterious ways. When things get rough, when we have no hopes left, He will make one for us. That also establishes Pisine's character of being a genuine believer of God. Na kahit he was baptized for several religion, the fact that his faith is deep makes him a true believer of God, not through words only. Today, this thing can be applied to us humans, because most of the people believe in God through words only, na kesyo pupunta sa simbahan, and but only some really apply those teachings in those God's word na in their actions. Parang how is this happening? Paano to nangyayari? For example, people be regularly go to Bible study that talks about the importance of honesty, but walks outside around telling lies. What do you call this? Hypocrite. One time the example is that of our national election in May 2019, 2022. People tend to talk about honesty and talk about God's words, about religious beliefs that move toward belief na you should follow the God's will that is in accordance to being honest, but then again vote for someone who fake their diplomas and shamelessly lie to their faces. I mean, that tells us more of the importance of believing God and applying it to our actions, and not only not only believing in God's words na and that limited na hindi natin i-apply sa sarili, because words only mean less of what we truly practice. It is still the action that speaks louder than our words. To add, the practice of God's word is not only limited to His word, and that is what I've mentioned a while ago, but then it is still dependent on us, kasi our life is we have say on our lives and our decisions, but since I've mentioned it, since we have the say in our lives and our decisions, it is still evident to us us Filipinos to believe in God as He will guide us. Siguro this is somewhat related to people who work like Pai, who fought for their life to survive, just to make their ends meet, and just like Pai, we live in our world today. It remains to be a lesson to us today that we should work for ourselves, but still ask for guidance, because true enough, diba, when things get rough, the only thing na pwede natin kapitan is ourselves and God. But it is not good to actually rely only to God and do not do the work. Kaya sometimes people tend to, because of the so much believe in God, people tend to see God as their own hope. to the point that they blindly follow the teachings of church and do nothing to solve their problem. But then we should not be like that nga, because we can believe in God to grant us something and at the same time act for that goal to be achieved, because that is similar to what Pai's behavior, what Pai did when he was at the boat. He did the things he thought na makikip sa kanila to live, but still ask God for guidance. Therefore, to conclude, the theme of trust in God but do the work is deemed to be relevant to us today, as we face challenges that make us question His faith, make us question His existence, or our faith is in question. That can be in connection to the pandemic and the problems that arise from it. Like for example, you lost your jobs, you lost the opportunity for a position just because of the pandemic, and for you may experience hunger because of the economic instability of the country. However, the fact that we continue to live, the fact that we are adapting to the world today, that means that, and we continue to live in our lives today, that speaks a lot about how we are still working for our own distinct individual goals, but still ask God to guide us in achieving it. With all of this, after decades passed, when the novel Life of Pi was written, the novel still is relevant to the people and the society, as well as the themes of the trust God but do the work are needed for the people to uplift their lives and have a quality living. Another major theme in the story Life of Pi is the power of nature and other creations. The setting of the novel is at the Pondicherry Zoo, and the most part of the story is at the Pacific Ocean. As the main character, Pi's existence and life have shared much of how powerful the creation we have on Earth. Ever since Pi was a child, he was exposed to animals, but it was on the greater part of the story that unfolds the power of nature and other creatures. It was the zoo that became their family's livelihood for several years before they were forced to live carrying the animals on their way to Canada. That is when their Pi's family died on the shipwreck. It is then we can see that the power of the nature is very extreme, to the point that, since even though it was their livelihood, the nature is their livelihood, it was the only thing that also take their life back. The power of the nature and other creatures remain to be seen in the adventure of Pi in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. When he was already in the Pacific Ocean, the power of nature is extremely seen. He was very dependent on the nature and the creatures like fish, and maybe even water and other food that kept him alive with the tiger for I think 222 days. Look at that part where we cannot deny the fact that living for days or even hours without food or water really can exhaust someone. But Pi lived for 227 days. How come? Because of the power of nature. This idea of having a powerful nature and other creatures remain relevant today. With the current issues with regards to the scientists, it happened last March 25th in our current year 2022. There were scientists who staged a worldwide climate change protest. The protest has something to do with nature and how we value it. It specifically has something to do with climate change. Because people are basically abusing the earth and its nature, and and it actually reflect or affect us with our resources and our daily life. And I think that speaks a lot about how powerful it is, how powerful the nature and the creature and earth to us, because um the power is attributed to the ecological services or that of the food, water, and many more. I mean, that speaks a lot about how important the nature holds in our life, to the extent that it gives us life to live, but it can also take our life back whenever. And the least thing that we could do is to protect and preserve it, because anything we can do, anything that we do to it can reflect back to us in any way possible. Another theme is the version of the story. Version of the story are a great example of how differently people think. How is this seen in the story of Life of Pi? The story of Pi actually has two different stories. First is the story where there are characters, Pi together with tiger, hyena, zebra, and monkey. However, the last part of the story, there were representatives from Japanese Ministry of Transport that went to Pai in Mexico, where he was found, to ask about the sinking of Chim Sum and about Pai's survival story. And Pai told them that since they do not seem to like the story, Pai then did something to make them believe with another version of the story that he had. It was another story that has a current character of mother, sailor, cook, and him, which he deemed to represent the animals from the first story he told them. What did the investigator believe? Of course, the story that satisfies their belief. This is seen into today in our contemporary world, as people become selective on the information they see as right in the story they heard of. This may be because people continue to be in denial of the true reason for such existence, to the point that they opt to believe something that satisfy their belief or satisfy their feelings of such thing. However, clearly the version of the story are deemed to be significant pa rin, because in the story of someone, another person is seen in the bad light, especially in the biases that the person possesses, and therefore knowing the version of the story is important to have a better understanding of what truly happened. One example is we are since we are exposed to a lot of information in the internet today, since in the 21st century, we are exposed to a lot of information, and that could lead to misinformation and disinformation. And since it is also taught in a school with our history subject, with readings in Philippine history and a lot of and other subjects as well, example is that of the martial law. For example, is the martial law. For instance, since we are exposed to a lot of information, it is difficult to know what is the true story. And about sa martial law, some people think that it is a golden era daw, and some people really believe that martial law is a good way daw that the Marcos regime in their disciplining the people in that time. And also it is in accordance to a lot of good deeds daw na nangyari noon, like for example the infrastructure, the Nutriban, and even the economy daw ng Philippines. However, some people believe that it is in a bad historical event happened to the Filipinos, because it resulted to thousands of tortures, killing, rape, and other human rights violation. In here, the importance of knowing and judging based on what oral testimonies make much of how important it is to know the version of the story in perspective of both the oppressor and the oppressed, or the victims and the ones who caused the victim to suffer because of some point. As I mentioned a while ago, it was because of the misinformation or the disinformation that led to the Filipinos believing in such information that maybe the martial law is good or bad. But since there are two versions of the story, because simply not everyone experienced the good aspects of that of the martial law, but others experience the tortured, and some are even missing today. Even today, Filipino people are still divided with the belief that the martial law is good or and bad. Because why? I think because with the information that they get in the internet, with the version of the story that they got from the internet, satisfy what they really want to hear. However, some really, of course, some really do fact-checking and weighing data rationally. Sabi nga nila, parang, it explains why some people will never ask for another story, because the side that they heard fits and satisfy the description of how they feel about it, and they do not want their illusions to be destroyed. The last major theme found in the story of Pai is that of finding oneself. Individuality of a person hardly rely on the reflections of how he or she behaves or thinks. This finding of oneself is seen in the story of Pai primarily in regards to his traits, characteristics, and other aspects. At the start, it was in the prior part of to his life, he considered himself a vegetarian together with his mother. They are both considered as vegetarian. But later on, he realized that he can also eat meat. It is when the finding of oneself, he discovered that he can also eat meat. Also, Pai's skills in the strategic thinking also unfolds in the later part of the story, because he was able to plan for everything, and needless to say that he managed to be in a harmonious relationship with the carnivorous tiger. Kasi even if you think of it, even he was a child, he was scolded because he tried to feed the tiger. Na sinabihan siya ng parents niya to not do that, because the emotions of Pai actually only represent that of the what he sees in the tiger, na nagre-reflect lang daw yung nakikita niyang sa mata ng tiger, nagre-reflect lang daw yung na-feel niya, and that na tiger only sees him as a food, or kasi the tiger is carnivorous and he is a meat. However, he discovered that in the hundreds of days that they were together, the tiger was good enough to be his companion. This theme of finding oneself is still seen today, in the sense that in the lowest points of the people's life, contributes to his or her whole life. Because true enough, when people face the darkest part of his or her life, having no food, having no hope, and sabi nga nila, kapag nasa lowest point ka ng buhay mo, it is where your true friends and family really surfaces. And that is similar to us as individuals. The more we experience things in life, or the more we struggle, the more we discover and find our own self, and discover what we really are capable of. That would be all. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have learned something from the discussion today. I am certain that we can all have faith in God, do the work, know the value of nature, and live our life to what we want it to be, as we continuously discover our true self. Have a great day ahead, everyone. This is Hazel Dihidia, signing off.